Very quickly, I know we're running over time here. So where does IP take us realistically? And we kind of got an indication of that in the roadmap we showed. Everything's available anywhere, flexible workflows. It's really these 2 points that really allows us to revisit or rethink how we build facilities and how we utilize facilities using IP. Virtualization, okay? So when we look at this diagram again, we see a lot of hardware here, okay? Especially when we get down here. This is a very traditional approach that we have always been familiar with in the SDI world, okay? The only thing we've done here is instead of having SDI in and SDI out, we've thrown IP connections into it. But we still have very fixed function, discrete hardware components here. Okay? That's a significant cost in our facility, okay? So with IP, what we want to do is now take the next step is to move away from these fixed function hardware devices to something that becomes more virtualized, okay? And how do we do that? Or what are our choices over here? Well, in this case, we've got a platform that allows us to now take those discrete and dedicated functions and virtualize them as software services. And then we can run those software services on off-the-shelf x86 platforms or generic, what we call FPGA hardware accelerated compute planes, okay? What that means is, in this case, this is an FPGA hardware accelerated compute plane, which is essentially FPGA-based processing that I can then send software services to. So in one case, I can make this a bank of frame syncs, right? So let's say I'm doing an election and I need 10 more frame syncs. Go ahead and spin 10 more frame syncs on this platform, utilize them. Once I'm done, free them up, use this hardware for maybe multi-viewing, more gateway services, or something else. We're removing that functionality, that discrete functionality in hardware, and we're separating it. We're making the hardware very generic, and we're allowing you to now run all those functions on and off those boards. Okay? So what that means is something like this. This is our 7814 UDX. As you can see, very powerful. It's a bit of a Swiss Army knife. It's got frame syncing, processing, up-down cross conversion. It's got audio embedding, de-embedding. It's got all these different functionalities on a physical, dedicated piece of hardware. What we're talking about here is I'm going to take these services, I'm going to make them software services or microservices. These are all going to be services I can now enable on generic FPGA hardware. So in this case, I have frame syncing, conversion, HDR, SDR conversion. I have my audio functionality, my ancillary functionality, gateway services as well. Okay. What ends up happening now is leveraging my control system and such. We have this as software as a service. These are a pool of licenses that I have that I can run on this generic hardware at any time. Okay. So in some cases, I can say I want a bunch of frame syncs, make them frame syncs, make those frame syncs available. Another time, I'm going to use them as maybe an HDR, SDR conversion, spin them up as services here, utilize it for the application that we need it for. Okay. So what happens now is I'm really gaining a great deal of flexibility with having common hardware components over here and the flexibility of being able to run anything we want on it. Okay. We expand that even further. We now have a wider range of processing capability. I have hardware accelerated FPGA ones, and this would be typically your low latency, low power type of application. So if I'm doing a live event with ultra low latency requirements, I'm going to be leveraging FPGA based stuff. I have the ability to have a pool of x86 servers. Again, if I'm looking for medium latency, I can run those different services on that. Even further is I can have the ability to spin up these services in the public or private cloud, right? So if I temporarily need services, for example, during election time, I can go to someone like an Amazon and say, hey, spin me up some frame syncs over here. Let me use them for the 2 weeks I need them for the election, and then I'm free them up without having to invest any more hardware on our facility. That's the kind of flexibility you're starting to get now. So we break this into pools of FPGA capacity, pools of CPU and GPU capacity that can be on-prem, and then pools of GPU, CPU, and FPGA capacity that can be available to you off-prem in the public cloud. Okay? Again, this is that paradigm shift where we're starting to say, we're moving away from a CapEx model to something that's more of an OpEx model. So what happens now is all these little hardware pieces that we start to see can easily become virtualized. They can be software services that are run off of these generic components. Okay. This one specifically here, this integrated layout, we made an announcement last Monday. Discovery in the US has launched all their channels, US-based channels, in the Amazon Web Service, so in the public cloud, the AWS platform. So they've moved their layout of their main channels, their high revenue channels, onto the public cloud. That's a significant leap in the industry. Remember, the biggest concern is security, reliability, and all the other parts. Discovery is that first major media company who's embraced the public cloud, has basically taken what they would have traditionally done in-house layout, and they've shipped it out to the public cloud. Okay, step one. Step two, now we start to say, okay, how much of this stuff in the production environment can I start to move in that model? Right? Again, it's a bit of a game changer. It's a different way of thinking about your facility. Right? A lot of our new facilities that we're starting to build is adopting this philosophy of these are not fixed hardware, but they're very dynamic. I want to be able to have the flexibility to turn things on and off when I need them. Okay. So that's one aspect of what IP brings to you, is the ability to now virtualize resources. Okay, so start to move away, like I said, from the CapEx to a more OpEx model, leveraging this on-demand resources and basically getting better utilization of your resources that you do have on hand. Another big thing, and this is from the production side of things, is something called one facility. Okay? So as we saw this transition in the playout side, in which we moved from tape-based to file-based, once we got into the file-based world, that changed a lot of dynamics in how we prepped content, how we moved content around, and what we did with that content. There was a lot of optimization that ended up happening because we no longer have this physical media that I have to share around to my different departments to do different things. Once I created that file, I can then make it available right away to all these different areas, so you can now do the different things I need to do in parallel. Same idea here, except in this case, we're applying that philosophy to the live production environment. Okay? So one facility is really a live production distributed architecture. What it allows us to do is really move away from the fixed workflows and the restrictions we have within it to now becoming very dynamic. And what we mean by dynamic is that we're no longer looking at these fixed workflows to deliver to these very rigid platforms. We now have the ability to be very dynamic and do things all at once as content is coming in, as live feeds are coming in. Right? We leverage this whole on-demand resource and allocation and scalabilities that we've come to expect out of an IP system. And we're really designed for the production environment. Okay? Taking all those things that we've kind of matured over the playout side of things, and now leveraging IP with an IP core, trying to bring those philosophies into the production environment. So what you see here, in this example, is I got signals coming in to my system, and that core then allows me to feed into these various functions that I have that are connected into the core. I can have signals that are coming directly from the building, or across the building, within the building, coming off the RF. Again, all these processes are now connected to the core, which means I can utilize them a lot more effectively. So if I look at what we do today, we have an SDI signal that comes in into my SDI router, and I feed it into these very linear path elements. So I feed that signal in, it gets to as an SDI, we do some non-linear editing, it gets put in, recorded into the video server, and we feed it into my production workflow, okay? We then take this, we transcode it, we do it into our servers, and once that's done, we can actually feed that to my distribution, I may then do some processing of the output and feed that out as well. So it's a very linear, very fixed and regimented manner that we've got in our workflow. One aspect is, well, I can still maintain this IP workflow, this linear workflow. What I'm going to do is put an IP switch with a bunch of gateways and just keep everything as SDI in, SDI out. But I'm going to take the IP signal here and I'm going to start doing my non-linear editing and my video recording using that IP interface. But I'm still keeping this very segmented, very regimented process. If I go to a purely IP perspective, what I can now have is signals coming in here and drive multiple formats at once and distribute those different profiles to various processing blocks all at once. And I can now deliver multiple elements at the same time. So for example, I have a signal coming in here. It comes into my QC point as it comes into my building. I derive a uncompressed version of it over IP. I derive a JPEG 2000 version, a mezzanine format, a H.264 422 10-bit version of it, and a 420 8-bit version of it. That live signal comes in, and now I can feed it to my production server, I can feed it to my nonlinear editor, I can do some processing, transcoding, all at the same time from that one single feed coming in. Which means that what I deliver is I can do the studio production at the same time, I can create specialized content at the same time for my OTT services, have that same live feed coming in, and at the same time feed my traditional playouts very easily as well. So it's a shift in how you think about those streams coming in. Instead of a very linear workflow, I can start building more efficient parallel and delivering live content quicker to various platforms that I looked at before. So here is just another example of this where we look at it from our production tool set, Dreamcatcher. So Dreamcatcher has a bunch of different capabilities. It does capture, does playout, does content management as well as distribution. So what happens now is I can have a pool of capture nodes, a pool of playout nodes, a pool of gateway nodes over here for a very large event. I can utilize all the capacity here and handle this live event. So my streams are coming in, we're doing the live event. I'm going to go ahead and capture that. So those signals are being recorded. I can do slow-mo, I can do the capture. At the same time, that signal can be sent to my gateway, which I can now feed into OTT services. So that live signal coming in is being captured, but also then makes it available to my OTT platform to give my subscribers a different position or a different view of that same event. The output to the capture goes into the playout. That playout now can be fed into my traditional studio workflow, but also at the same time be fed out to my OTT. So again, I can start creating simultaneous productions, one for my traditional work, one for my OTT, one for my social media platforms, all at the same time. In another case, I can reconfigure this where I've got multiple events happening in which I'm going to start using different devices to handle these different multiple events. So I can have 2 things happening, or 3 things, or 4 things happening, and I'm really just allocating resources to handle that while still maintaining, giving the ability to handle my traditional production, as well as my other streams, my other alternative distribution platforms, whether it's streaming to Facebook, whether it's a live stream to my OTT platform. Okay. Again, what this does, it really allows us to now be very responsive to the consumer. In fact, what this does is allows, and this is actually one of the objectives that CNN and Turner has by going to IP, is what they do is because of this approach now, they can become very consumer-centric. Okay? They can now deliver content based on real-time data that's coming in, right? So they can be very reactive, they can change what they're delivering because they can see in real time what's appealing to the audience, what's driving audience numbers, because they've got this agility that they would have had before. And lastly, it's a fully secure environment.